This is George Dionne with Metal Express Radio, and I'm here with Robert Berry of the band 3.2. How you doing today, Robert?
I'm good, George. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. If I knew absolutely nothing about the band 3.2, how would you describe the music to me?
You know, it is partly a throwback to the days when Asia had their big hit album, Heat of the Moment and Only Time Will Tell. It has the songs of that style. It's partly a throwback to ELP, of course, because Keith Emerson is involved and Carl Palmer was involved in the first album. And then there's me, who at the time was being groomed by Geffen to be sort of Bryan Adams meets Sting kind of guy, like straight AOR rock with creativity in it. And I wound up working with Steve Howe and GTR before I became part of 3. So that was the same Asia-ish GTR kind of thing. That's who I am and what I do. So the music is progressive, but it has a storyline to the lyrics, and it usually has a hook chorus, something you can remember, because a lot of progressive music to me rambles on. You know, some of the stuff I don't like goes on for 20 minutes without a thread kind of hang on to. So when it's done, you go, oh, they really played good. But you don't take anything into the heart and soul kind of, you know?
Right.
And then there's stuff, yes, Genesis. I mean, there's so much stuff that is not like that. It's really great. And they are able to do the real musical, creative, virtuoso thing and still connect lyrically in song-wise. So I didn't explain you, but I didn't answer your question, but there you go. Take it.
Good enough. I'll take it. I wanted to go back to kind of the origins of where 3.2 started, because I think that's the best way to get to where you're at now.
Yeah.
And the band started out as the band 3 in 1988 with yourself, Keith Emerson, and Carl Palmer of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And your first album was To the Power of 3. How did that whole project come together?
I was, like I said, being groomed by Geffen Records for sort of taking me out of my progressive career, almost like what happened to Phil Collins, right? All of a sudden became a pop artist. Well, they're going to make a straight rock artist out of me. And Carl heard my cassette tape in John Kolodner at Geffen's office, and he liked it. And they were having a little trouble with John Wetton then. And Carl called me right here in the same studio, not an iPhone, because in 86 they didn't have iPhones, and they certainly didn't have Skype and Zoom and all that, you know. But we talked on the studio phone here, and he said he liked my voice and my songwriting. Either they were talking about adding me to Asia or starting a new band. Carl decided he wanted to start a new band, so we tried a bunch of different people. It didn't work out. I was living in England then, in downtown, right in London, and Steve Howe needed someone to replace Steve Hackett in GTR, so I joined GTR for 86, 87, a little bit. And Steve and I got along great. That wasn't working out great for me with their singer, though, so I actually quit. I loved that band. I would have liked to have stayed, but I wasn't going to live my newly found, I want to say stardom because I didn't have any, but the place working with all my heroes, I wasn't going to give that up to be harassed for the rest of my life. So I left, and the day before I was flying back home, my manager was Brian Lane, said Keith Emerson wants to have lunch. Okay. Had lunch. He was a great guy. We had 2-hour lunch. We're joking, and he was just so easy to get along with. He had one question: if we start a new band and we tour, will you do a couple of ELP songs? How would you feel about that? What was I going to say? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly.
No, of course, for me, being the new guy, that was to help launch the new band. Why wouldn't we? That crowd's going to want to hear their hits. We had no hits. And I didn't realize we'd play such hard ELP tunes when we did it. But, okay. But I was capable. I learned them, and we had a great time. Keith got criticized quite heavily by a couple people that wrote letters. They were just scathing, you're ruining your legacy. We had female background singers. How dare you have scantily clad female background singers on tour? And you've seen progressive rock crowds. It's mostly guys, right?
Yeah.
I don't know which guy wrote that letter, but I'm thinking something's wrong here. But Keith was susceptible to that kind of thing. They never harassed Carl because he was in Asia. Asia did basically what 3 was doing, songs with progressive elements in it. And but Keith didn't like that, so he broke up the band, really. And for 27 years. We did lots of things together. He did a TV commercial with me. He played on some albums that I was producing. Tempest, Celtic rock band, great band. We stayed in touch. We just did things, and I saw him at the NAMM show or Christmas calls, whatever. But I would never bring up doing another 3 album because he really felt that these guys were right. It was going to ruin his reputation. Then the Live in 3 in Boston came out. The company put it out, and Keith had basically signed off on that. It would be a paycheck. He got some money in the bank. I don't care. But it showed up at his house, and he played it. First time when it came in, first day. And he called me immediately and said, Robert, we were such a good band. I didn't realize. I think, well, I always thought we were, of course, the new guy, right?
Yeah.
But I was amazed. He's like the fire in the plane. It was so alive, And he went on and on. So I thought, now's the chance to ask him, Keith, you want to do a follow-up? And he said, maybe. And of course, that meant it needs to be real. I immediately called Frontiers Records, who
Yep.
They do great work. They've been wanting me to do a 3 album for like 10 years. And I said, I just want to ask Keith. Called him and said, he's open to it. Got a great budget, artistic freedom. Keith was so happy. We started working. What I didn't know is, I'll play this piano here. Yeah, I showed you were in my studio. Right in front of me is a control console, and my big screen's up there. And right here is the piano, just a digital that I use for singers. Hey, you're flat. Sing that, Well,
yeah.
Keith had a digital piano, both Casios, in his room. And we would work on the phone, usually after 7, I'm down at the studio here, on new songs. And we really, it's sort of like talking right now. We have a visual going. I don't think it'd be really any better if you were in the room here, except you'd see all the equipment, which is kind of cool. But as far as you and me talking, these days, you don't have to be in the same room to feel a connection, and the friendship and everything. So we really got creative. And I didn't realize, because I had got him good money with our contract and he's being creative and everything, that this was sort of his happy place. I'd play something like, simple, and he'd go, oh, yeah. I go, okay, yeah, okay, we'll put that in there. And some of that, sometimes I had to sort of, record off the phone or recreate it, and I'd play it slow. He'd go, yeah, and he'd say there was a D, and that chord there, oh, okay. We worked it, and it was great, but the rest of his life wasn't going so well. And I had no idea, because, like I said, this was his happy place. He was doing what he was born to do, what he loved doing. The home problems, the health problems. He could still play. It hurt, but he wasn't unable to play. People say, oh, he committed suicide because he couldn't play up there. No, there's other things. He had a impending heart problem he had to have taken care of. There's, just other things.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it. And it was tough for me when he died to continue on. I didn't for a year, till his son Aaron sort of encouraged me, to finish up what we had started on.
And that album was The Rules Have Changed.
Yeah. Boy, was I worried. I was worried before that came out, let me tell you, because to finish it up, I had 6 songs that we have completed, basically, without the final vocal and then some other stuff. And I had to finish them up. And I'm thinking, oh, people are going to hate this. They're going to, oh, geez, what are they going to say? And then it came out, and the reviews were so good that's why I did this. I didn't want to do a follow-up, but Frontier said, it's tough to get an album out and popular these days. You did really well with The Rules Have Changed. You need to do a follow-up.
Yeah.
That's my session I'm working on. I'll turn that down. So that was The Rules Have Changed. And it was amazing, the reception it got and how kind people were, and what Keith would have felt if he would have heard that next to what he heard from a couple guys in 1988. And you have to remember, with no internet, no email kind of stuff, you people send you a letter. That's how you communicated, or you talked on the phone. And of course, these guys couldn't call Keith Emerson, but they could send a letter through the management that got to Keith that told him how terrible he was doing, So now it would have made such a difference if he could have heard and seen the way people are receiving the albums. Really.
Right, exactly. And you know what? I've come to find out that people don't put in the effort to praise people, at least back then in the 80s. They're not going to go out of their way to write a letter to say how great it is. They're just going to be like, this is great. It's that one angry guy that's like, I got to put this thought down and send it to him.
That's the Yelp thing, right? You go to a restaurant, you have a great meal. Oh, honey, that was great. Oh, man, hey, how you guys? Oh, that was good. But you go and you hate it. Yelp, that was terrible. So that's exactly what happened. It's just too bad.
So when you got back together with Frontiers and you're working a little bit with Emerson, did you guys call Carl Palmer at all?
Yes, I talked to Carl. Carl and I have actually, before Three started, tried to start a band before I joined GTR. And Carl became a very good friend and a very big supporter of mine. And during the whole process, I was probably closer to Carl friendship-wise, but closer to Keith creativity-wise, because, I was the voice and half the writing, and Keith was the sound and half the writing. And Carl played the drums, but he wasn't a writer or a singer. So Carl and I, we stayed friends, but Keith and I got closer over the years, and Carl and I drifted away because he was so busy with ELP and stuff, the ELP legacy he has.
Yeah. I
called him and I said, we're going to do this. Keith wants to do it, and wouldn't it be great? Would you do it? He goes, they'd have to offer me a lot of money because I got my ELP legacy going, and I'm so busy doing it. And I said, well, Keith, we got a good contract, but he wanted as much money as I'd gotten Keith and I together, so
yeah.
So we couldn't do it. It was too bad. But then again, Keith really wanted to use Simon Phillips. So there was something, he had worked at Cozy Powell, and Cozy was such a strong beat and tight, hard-hitting drummer that he wanted the album, and so did I, to be a little bit tougher than the ELP or even Three was. He wanted to be like, rocking and harder and more deep in the rhythms and things. So he thought Simon Phillips, and of course I had worked with Simon on a ELP tribute album. He's amazing. And that was going to be the choice, but Keith wanted to finish it before we added Simon to it. So Simon would just play to what we have created. So that didn't get to happen.
Well, we're here in 2021, and on February 12th, you're releasing the second 3.2 album, which is Third Impression.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that. Is it just you working on this album?
It is now. There is a song that Keith and I had worked on together it's almost 9 minutes. It's called Never, last song on the album. I don't know if they sent you a link or not to the album.
I have listened.
Nobody has heard it except for the people I'm talking to, because they get a special link to it,
Yep.
And it's almost 9 minutes long. It was just too much for the Rules of Change. Rules of Change got finished through lyric changes and some things I had to do because of what happened. And a couple of songs I wrote to finish it off because of what happened. And it was a body of work that never wouldn't fit on. It seemed appropriate on this album to have a song called Never on it, because this is what I consider the third in the Three legacy, the Three albums, same kind of covers, same kind of sound. Keith and I worked on all three of them, although most of the last one I had to do by myself. And I sort of played a little bit of a game. I said, because the record company says, you got to do this. I said, well, I have the one more song, and, but I'm not going to finish it unless I can write 7 songs. The number one, I think Keith would have been proud to work on. Number 2, that I think say something that applies to this. And I actually get them done, And as I started to write them, they, just like with the last Rules of Change, things just came out. I don't know, Keith's guiding me or whatever, or my time with him. They just come out a certain way that I still don't quite understand. But I also knew that I had to move this album a little bit toward what I might do in the future, because I can't do another 3 album. There is no Keith Emerson to work with. And that's the only way I'd ever do one. So I have to leave this style and sound behind a little bit. I can take a little bit with me because it's who I am. I was part of it. But it needs to go, and it's actually a little bit of GTR in what I would do on my own. So if you've heard it, then there's more guitar in this album, but there's plenty of keyboards too. And that's kind of my favorite thing. The mix of keyboards and guitars, a perfect balance.
Sure. You released a couple of songs from the album so far ahead of its release. Bond of Union, I believe you dedicated that one to your mother.
Yeah, I lost my mom a couple of years ago, and with everything that's happened and losing Keith and the emotion, I had a song called "Our Bond" that I wrote for Keith. It was only released online, and then it was developed for the Rules of Change into a much bigger piece. I wrote something for my mom, and because of the situation when she died, I couldn't sing it at a funeral or some kind of get together. And I always tell people, I wanted to be my dad. My dad had the Vox store when I was little, the Beatles amps and the guitars. He had the guitar store and the kind of organs that Lawrence Welk would use, if you know that name is. There might,
Yeah.
I mean, there was a name, but a lot of people, Lawrence, well, who's that? Well, he had a store in the 60s and the 70s, and Keith went down to sign pianos at his store, actually.
Oh, no kidding.
And I forget why I was telling you about the Vox stuff. Actually, I'm a big Vox fan, but it was not just because of the Beatles, because of the store. So I'm lost. What was the question?
The question was the song about your mother, A Bond of Union.
Yes, I'm sorry. So I needed to do something to honor her. I always wanted to be my dad, was what the reason I was talking about the store. He had a piano, an organ store, a Vox store. He loved cars, loved property, and he had a band. I have a music store, a recording studio. I love property. I have a Tesla Roadster, if you know what that is. That Tesla is fast. And I have a band. But it was my mom that sort of made me who I am, because when I didn't want to practice my piano, she was there. She made me practice. When I wanted to sing, she got me a singing teacher, supported me, getting through college. Whatever I wanted to do, my mom and dad were right behind me. They never said, hey, you need it. They didn't influence me politically or anything. They're right behind me, though, supporting me if I had an interest. And I just felt I owed it to her to do something really important to honor the memory of what I feel made me who I am, So that's why our bond is important. I was worried that actually a bond of union. I was worried that it would be too mellow, and people say, oh, you're selling out like Phil Collins, he didn't those pop tunes. But it's a really deep, important song. And I found so far that people are finding their own parents. They're saying, oh, man, the sacrifice. Yeah, they did sacrifice. If they are good or bad parents, there still comes a sacrifice, and they made you who you are, right? Even a bad parent can make you who you are. You can fight that. I'm not going to be like that. I had a guy live behind the studio. His mom had a coke problem. They lost their house, their business, everything. He's a music producer now. He's done so well. I will not be like the way I was raised.
Right.
So they make you who you are, and people are getting with that, even though it's not as much a three kind of sound as the first one, Fond Farewell, which was really right in the three kind of pocket,
Yeah. A similar theme with A Fond Farewell, as far as lyrics are concerned?
No, A Fond Farewell it's about the farewell to kindness. And I don't want to get into politics. I don't talk politics, but I think, I'll put it this way. When I was young, I wouldn't say shit in front of my parents, right?
Right.
Now, my son uses the F word like it's saying thank you, right? And all the kids do. F this, F that. So, and the news, we get numb to all the killing, whatever's on the news. Oh, and someone else, another school shooting. Oh, and by the end of the week, we forget about it. So I feel that if we say goodbye to kindness, like we are on Facebook and everything, we're fighting, the whole country fighting, it's going to become commonplace in 10, 15, 20 years. And this is going to be really sad. Saying goodbye to that piece of it. I think it's dangerous, and I don't care what your view is on politics, anything else. You just need to be kind and care about if you believe totally different than me, and I can understand why you do, then I have the right to disagree. But I just say, forget you, what right does that give me to tell you that you're wrong and I'm right? No, but if I agree, if you say, that screen you have in your microphone, I had one of those. That's no good. But I've tried one. You go, oh, I tried the kind you have. I don't like it. Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, it's personal opinion, and we meet in the middle, kind of.
Absolutely.
Cool. That's all. That's what it should be. That's what Fond Farewell is kind of about. I'm writing a new one right now. It's called the last word on earth. And it's sort of the same theme, you know.
Right.
We're going to get to a certain point where people are just so mean and they don't care to be, you know, loving and kind and stuff, that I mean, nothing else to say, because you'll know it's
Right.
just going to be mean, rude, and divisive. So anyway, that's
well, you could throw into that kind of how our language is being redefined. I think that's a gigantic. I mean, you say the last word on earth. Sometimes I don't, you know, it doesn't make, they're trying to confuse, people are trying to confuse other people on what the meaning of words are.
yes.
You know, a word that you thought was just, you know, we'll use unoffensive. I didn't want to go there, but a word that you thought was just benign, and all of a sudden it's taken on this whole new meaning. I don't remember as a society us deciding on that.
Yeah, you know, today California, we're here in close to San Francisco. San Francisco decided to take all the names off the schools.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Them. You know, and sure, I understand that people were slave owners and stuff, but I understand that that was the lay of the land then, just like Facebook is the lay of the land now, right? And I certainly want them to maybe make a lesson learned like the Germans do with the Nazi thing. It's a lesson. They don't push it on the table. But the thing is, they're saying all this stuff that they want to change, which, okay, I can understand why they want to change it. I don't agree, but it's going to cost between $400,000 and $1 million to do this, because you have to change the sign, you have to change the school uniforms, and the school district is at a deficit. They don't have any money.
No, of course.
But they're going to change the. I mean, that's the sense of language and everything, just for the sake of being mean. I don't. You know, it's crazy.
Yep. Well, you got to form a commission and pay for a study. And
yes, yeah, right, exactly.
So
yeah.
That ends the politics version of our interview.
Yeah.
Are you going to have a vinyl release for the new album?
You know, I have vinyl on The Rules Have Changed.
Yes.
I did it myself. Frontiers was not going to do it.
Okay.
And because that was my tribute to my time with Keith, the last work that he could ever do was that album, and we did it together. And I thought people should have a trophy, let's say, you know. But my wife and I packaged those. I mean, I took it to the mastering guy, watched him cut the grooves. I had the covers printed. The pressing plant was I chose different than the cover pressing place. We slide them in the covers where you can open the clear sleeves that are really nice. I had the pick made with the first album cover, the red one on one side, and this one, the yellow one, I call it, on the other side. I taped that to the outside, had a postcard of the albums put in there. I sign them, and we send them to people, then order them. I don't advertise or anything. People find out about it. It's on my website. I'm not doing it to make a bunch of money, because let me tell you, it cost me a ton.
Oh, yeah.
I've sold a couple hundred of them. There's 300 of them all together. I don't think I can invest that 10 grand it took to do it on this one right now, just because it's a different time, you know, without playing.
Oh, absolutely.
But boy, I'd love to have one. I have, and here's the reason. I'd like to be able to put the new one with the blue one up and have all the colors on my wall, because I just think they look really cool together, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know. Maybe at some point.
Okay. 3.2 is not the only project you have going on with Frontiers Music. Last year, you put out another album with Alliance, Fire and Grace. Is that band still going?
Alliance is always going. When Sammy Hagar was either quit Van Halen or was kicked out of Van Halen, and I was playing with Sam during that time, and I really think he was sort of kicked out because he didn't agree on the greatest hits and stuff they're going to do. Hey, we're top of the world. Why we do that? And they didn't like it. They need the money. There was a reason for that, but they need the money. And Sam never needs money because he does everything he does.
Backwards with the money.
Amazing guy. You know, I do the keyboard tracks for his Circle band. When the keyboards go on for the Van Halen stuff, that's me playing the keyboards. It's pre-recorded. But so Alliance, Sammy went to Van Halen, and David Lauser, Alan Fitzgerald, and Gary Peel. Gary joined Boston. David did the odd gig with Sammy's solo thing. I started playing bass with Sammy, and Alan Fitzgerald was at a Night Ranger, and they wanted to keep going. So we formed Alliance in 92, was it? Almost right after the Three thing ended. And either every 6 to 8 years, we still put out an album. Because of the schedules, I've been in Ambrosia.
Yeah.
I play with Greg Kinn now. Between all that touring and my own tour a couple of, year and a half ago at 3.2, and Gary out with Boston every other year, sometimes every 5 years in between. He's busy. It was hard to say, okay, every 2 years we're going to do an album. But we're always writing, and we always have a couple songs every year we get together. So once there's 10 or 12 songs, then we can put out an album. Fire and Grace had, I think, some of our best stuff on it too. Maybe, I don't know if it's our best album all around, but there's a couple songs on it that were really, really good that I'm proud of. And that's Escape Music puts that out. Frontiers put out something else and put out solo.
Oh, you're right. That is.
Yeah.
I was going to get to your other Frontiers one.
Yeah, Khalil Turk at Escape has been a supporter of Alliance since day one. And
he's been putting out some great albums on that label.
Yeah. They take a lot of care. They don't put out that much, whereas Frontiers puts out 10 every month. And you have to hope
all on the same day.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's mostly, it's White Snake kind of rock, Journey kind of rock. They do a lot of that. Yeah. And dang, they're successful with it. I mean, I kind of wonder, how can you put out so many albums? But they sell copies. People buy these things. So why not? Right. They're getting more into progressive music because they realize with the rules that changed that the progressive guys, they want the CD or a vinyl. They want to hold it. They want to read the booklet. They want it in their bookshelf, like it's their library. They don't want it just in their file on their computer, Right. So they're saying, we should do more of this really musical kind of stuff because the fans of it, they want to own it. And there's a better profit margin, but it's also, I don't know, what would I call it? It's the legacy and the music is stronger,
Nostalgia.
Yeah.
Because we kind of all grew up with, physical media. And, there's a convenience to having music at your fingertips today, but there's no experience. I mean, I was one of those guys went all digital as soon as, it came out. And then I'm like, streaming, oh my God, I can have every song I ever wanted. And then I started getting back into vinyl. And I'm like, this is nice. I could just sit here and the packaging's nice. And it reminds me of my childhood because, I found in my experience that basically, when you were growing up is really the time that you thought music was the best.
Oh, yeah. Especially guys. Now, that's Herbie Herbert was my manager. That's Journey's manager. For about a year and a half. He's the one that led me through all the good things to get me to England. And he said, males find a band in high school, college, and when they're 75, 80 years old, they still like that band. Because females find a band, then they have babies. That band changes. And then they come back maybe when it's an oldies of that band they liked in high school. Donny Osmond or something. They come back to it. But they change when they have their kids. And he was a very wise man, self-made. He was a roadie kind, and then he became a huge manager. He also told me that a band has a bigger draw than a single artist because Steve Perry's solo album was coming out when he was managing me. And he was watched. Steve thinks he's going to sell as much as Journey, but he won't, even though he's that great voice. Journey has the draw from all four members and the name. That's five guys, basically, Steve Perry's one guy. And he was so right about that. The band name has its own draw besides the people who are involved in it.
And the music lives beyond the people.
That's right. Yeah.
So your actual project with Frontiers was all 41, but Gary Phil was still involved. So that's where I got confused.
Yeah, Gary. And what's funny, his name is pronounced Peel, but it doesn't look like it. We call him File. Hey, File, what's going on? But, I gave one of my best songs, Down Life's Pages, to that album. I hate to say it, and, I don't usually cause too much trouble, but I wish I wouldn't have done that because that was a put together band. I love working with Gary, but Gary and I already have something, and Down Life's Pages would have been perfect on an Alliance album. Yeah. And as much as Matt Starr, oh my God, what great drummer, and Terry's a great singer. And what's funny, on the first single, we split back and forth vocals, and nobody could tell the difference. But I think his voice is more like Steve Perry, clear and really out there. I guess they just thought when I sang, he was a little bit hoarse. You know,
Right.
he was, oh, just had a rough day. Yeah, listen to that part. But I kind of, I don't want to be in any put together bands kind of. I'm looking for the real thing, kind of like guys that work together like Alliance does.
Yeah.
And I like the album. Don't get me wrong. I'm still proud of the work. I just think, so many guys are doing that. Look, all the American guys from Yes just put out an album together, that they all have some kind of thing in Yes that they do, and it's just a project. It's doesn't have a feel to it. There's no heart in that kind of. Anyway, not to down the All 41, and that was Gary's name. He goes, some are going to say All for One, or they're going to say All 41. Let them decide what the name is.
Right.
All for One, it could be,
You also have a Christmas band that you play out with, where you take Christmas classics and put them in the style of classic rock artists.
That
December People.
Labor of Love, Gary Peel's in that one. In fact, when I first had the idea of, I did an album for a company called Magna Carta, the very first December People album. And they called me. I had done the ELP, the Jethro Tull, the Yes, all these tribute things. And my versions were totally different than the original, but kept all the elements of the originals. And they turned out being really popular, like my Roundabout. I don't know if you ever heard that or not. And they called me and said, man, we just love the work. And the fans are loving your version of Watcher to the Sky. They're almost more than the originals. I said, oh, okay. We want you to do a Christmas album. They're all happy. I go, well, I'm not going to do a Christmas album. My family my mom sang in my dad's band. We didn't sit around the piano singing Christmas carols at Christmas. It's just, we get paid when we play, right?
That's right.
I don't want to do a Christmas album. I had done so much for Peter Morticelli at that company that he said, we want you to do a Christmas album. You figure out how you'll do it. Click. and he was a really good friend of mine. And he wasn't being mean. He was just saying, you're going to do this. We're going to make it. So I sat down. I said, well, damn, I've worked with all these really top guys. What if I tried doing, what was my first one? I took Stairway to Heaven and put The Night Before Christmas to it.
Yep.
And that was, I think, my second one. The first one, I can't remember. I'm going to have to look at the album. But when I sent it to him, I still have the email. I had to say, he goes, this is genius. This is going to work. Do 12 of them for an album. Okay. It's much harder than it seems because I have to keep sort of the sound of the band, the riffs of the band inside out, so I can't get sued for doing it. They can't be the real riff.
Right.
And it has to stay completely true to the Christmas Carol. It has to be the song that you sang around the Christmas tree, Jingle Bells, Jingle Bells. Well, I did Jingle Bells like Hot for Teacher, Van Halen. And once I get the arrangement to fit like a glove, getting guys to play in the style that's the easy part,
Right.
But it's getting it to fit like a ZZ Top's version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. How, you better watch out, you better not cry. It fit like a glove. And I'm struggling right now with a new one because I only have 5 songs out of the 10 I need to find some. You think I'd be able to do a Stones one. I've never been able to do a Stones one I'm happy with. If I could launch December People bigger, and I'm looking for the right management company to put it out because it's a charity thing.
Yeah.
We're all involved. They're all from famous bands. Dave Med, the keyboard players with the Tubes, David Lauser, of course, he plays with Sammy. And I did have Mike Vanderheuvel, who's the drummer from Y&T. He was our first drummer. Gary, of course, plays in Boston. And we go out, we do it for charity. We have a motto that if we play these smaller cities and these town venues, if every city or town took care of their own homeless or hungry people, we could wipe it out. It doesn't cost that much money. What they get, how much food they get for $20 is amazing. Oh, yeah. So if each town would take care of their own, it wouldn't be a problem. I think even a poor town, in the middle of wherever, could probably help their hungry people anyway. It just needs to be the kind of effort that is centralized. because the big companies aren't doing the job. It seems like people fall through the cracks. Even here, I'm in Silicon Valley, where Netflix is half a mile that way.
Yeah.
eBay is a mile that way. And these are where they started, the main places. Apple is 2 miles that way. I'm right in the center of all this. We have a terrible homeless problem with tent cities. I'm like, Silicon Valley is the 7th largest economy in the world. What? Yeah. And that probably makes us bigger than the economy of Italy, maybe. I mean,
Sure.
It's the 7th, and we have tent cities. We can't deal with this in California. So our thing is to try to get where we go, food banks and TV, whatever we can do, and try to sort of get people to help their own. But it's been tough. It's not there's resistance to it, but it's tough to open those concert doors. And, Trans-Siberian is so huge and does so much, but their music isn't as accessible. It's all the flashing fires and lights and everything. It's a great show. Our music, you can actually sing, and it's funny.
Right.
Living on a Dream is Silver Bells, Tom Petty. And It fits like a glove. And if you come to see us and we have the new songs and you don't know what it's going to be, you see people crack up when we start something because they go, oh my God, how did they make that work?
Yeah.
Because for your average person, it sounds like the real Tom Petty song. A music lover or a musician knows that the riff's inside out and backwards, but the tone is the same. So it sings down, 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 that starting riff.
Yeah.
They think it's the same riff, but it's not, And it's the real chords from the Christmas Carol. So that's not the same as the original song, Tom Petty song either, but you think it is.
Right. Well, you need to check out Twisted Sister's Christmas album because they made "O Come All Ye Faithful" sound like We're Not Going to Take It.
They did it in their style, and I thought that was really cool. The whole album was like, yes. Yep, that was really cool, yeah.
You have this nice studio there that you're sitting in. You must have other musicians in and out of there besides just yourself and the projects you work on.
I'm very lucky. I have to tell you, my watch just said, did you fall? Because I hit it against these Apple watches. And so I'm playing drums a lot of times, and my watch will be going, I look at it and go, are you okay? The watch is asking me because I'm hitting the drums. I'm really lucky here. I've been in business for 30 years at the studio. I have great local people come in. I like working with sort of unknown singer-songwriters where they bring their song and the instrument they play, and I do the rest, and I help them package it where it's sort of like radio ready. It sounds like a master. You've heard my albums. I have the best of a Neve console, the best mics, I have the best of everything, which I do for myself, but it benefits the clients. I have a great Mexican band called Los Tigres del Norte, who is the Mexican Beatles, they call them. They have 14 Grammys, these guys.
Nice.
And they record here. Of course, Alliance records here and all my projects. But even 3 back in '88, we were touring. They came here and rehearsed. We all rehearsed here. It's sort of home base for anything I do. Ambrosia did our DVD and stuff when I was with them here. I have a great clientele, but what I like the most is when I get a young new artist that's never done it before, and I can sort of elevate the recording experience and their expectations of what it can be for the first time. That's I know I've worked with, Keith Emerson, Steve Howe, but I love it when someone goes, oh my God, I just didn't expect it to turn out as good as it did. There's nothing better than that for me.
Do you have anything going on as far as a solo album or anything like that going ahead?
Not right now. I'm writing toward my goal of this album, where I wanted to take the fan of 3, the music lover that likes that, and on this album you can hear there's a little more guitar. We've got quite a bit more guitar, and move half this album toward what I would do on my own, because honestly, I can't do another 3 album without Keith.
Right.
And Carl's not a writer. If he said, well, I'll do one, it's still me writing everything. So I love the experience of writing and working with Keith on the things. So there is nowhere to go with this. This has to be it. There's 3 albums in the 3 style. I need to figure out how am I going to do that? Well, I was a big Yes fan too. And Steve Howe, huge in my book. Working with him was really something. And I got along, and writing wise really good. So I'm trying to move the next thing, at least writing wise, to something that's half keyboard, half guitar, and see where it winds up. I do have my 3.2 band that, we toured in 2019.
Yep.
And then we had a leap year. We went from 2019 to 2021.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a great band. Jimmy Keegan from Spock's Beard, the drummer, and he's a great singer too. Andy Collier from a band called Circuline, who's a new keyboard player to the scene, but on tour, he had to learn my history of music, which means Carnival 9, the way Jordan Rudess did it with me. Keith Emerson, the way he did Desert La Vida. He had to learn everything, and he did such a splendid job. It was really good. And Paul Keller, who actually was a guitar player on the 3 tour, my longtime friend here in town, has done locally everything with me that I've ever written or played in. When we do local gigs with the band, he would always be the guitar player, and he was a guitar player in Hush, my first professional band. So he was in the 3.2 band, and we had a great time. There's that. We were supposed to be in Europe last year with Big Train touring. Of course, all that got canceled. So maybe that will happen end of this year or beginning next year.
Yeah, it'd be good to see you guys out there somewhere.
Where are you at?
I'm in Massachusetts.
Okay. So we didn't get there on the tour. We
don't get a lot of, it's tough out here in Massachusetts. It's mainly pop and hip hop and stuff
we got
like that.
To New Hampshire at the LaFaro Center. And Gary Peel actually drove. He said a couple hour drivers. He drove down, but it's the middle of nowhere, right?
Right,
and,
exactly.
Of course, he brought his wife. He wanted to see me, and that was okay for him. But we 3 played the album that was released. 3 live in Boston, the Ritz.
Yeah, that's long gone.
No, yeah, it was 1988. What do you mean?
There's a club there, but it's not called the Ritz. I couldn't tell you what it's called now. It's probably the House of Blues. I really don't know. Yeah,
well, and Greg Kidd and I do a House of Blues thing. We have a duo thing where we do a storytellers of his life.
Yeah,
and we did some House of Blues. So yeah, you never know, it might come through with something else. We can meet then.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all I got for you today. I had a great time talking to you. I definitely learned a lot here.
Well, I appreciate it because I like having a conversation. I'm not much of a salesman. I mean, I want people to go to my website, but my Twitter number, let's see Instagram. It's not what I do. They can find me at www.robertberry.com, and that's cool. But that has history, has GTRs, everything on there. That's why I like people to look at that because I've been really lucky, super lucky.
You've been in a lot of things I didn't realize you were in that I like.
Well, and all of it together has made me a living. But unlike, say, Greg Lake, Keith, I didn't have one thing that made me $1 billion. I have to work. I love doing it. I have lots of ideas. So I'm just lucky that I get to keep doing it. How's that happen?
I know, right? Kids today aren't going to have that advantage. The new bands today, they're not going to have that advantage.
And it's funny because when December People goes out, we have a lot of 9, 10, 12-year-old kids come with their parents to see us. And the 9-year-old kid, I like that AC/DC one. How old are you? 9. You like AC/DC? Yeah. And the kids can sing "We Will Rock You," Queen. They can sing it. They can sing all those anthems, but they can't. Hip hop kind of flavor of the month, or even of the year. Then it's gone, and it's the hook isn't there. Like we will rock you. Right. It's not there. So when they're in their 50s, 60s, are they going to be down in women with the F word and all the stuff that the rap tunes do? Okay.
They're going to remember these guys. They're not even going to remember these guys when they're older.
Yeah, they'll be singing "We Will Rock You," right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I appreciate your time. It's been a good conversation. Seriously.
No, I appreciate your time as well, man. It was good. I liked it. And you do the conversation. We'll do the conversation stuff. And guys like me, we'll promote you. We'll sell you.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Take it easy.
See you later.
All right.